England versus India. The Cricket Badger Test Match Daily Podcast. Can Joe Root's England dominate on home soil? 5 mouth-watering test matches. Can Virat Kohli's India conquer the final frontier? Loving to talk test cricket every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome along. It is another edition of the Cricket Badger podcast, and it is great to have you with us. We've seen the end of the third test match. We're now looking ahead to test matches 4 and 5 as we go through the rest of this English cricket summer. It's been a terrific series so far, and joining me to talk about it, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen today, we have my wonderful fan badgers. We have Anand Beaker, we have Naman Shah, and we have Rito Maitra. Talking to us. Anand, let's start with you because you were struggling to get onto our call. Can we hear you? Can we see you? I think we can.
I think I finally got things figured out. It's always fun when you start your laptop up and it wants to do a restart with all the Windows updates. I was just waiting for it to get started again.
Well, you've just reminded me that my laptop was nearly out of battery, so I've just plugged that in whilst we were talking there. What I want to do today is kind of have a look at the team selections, if anything, for the Oval Test match. And I've seen a lot of Indian fans. Anand and Naman, both are Indian badges. Rito's an English badger. But let's talk about the Indian team selection first. Talk about the Oval being a little bit more spin-friendly. Certainly Old Trafford has recently been very spin-friendly. Ashwin coming in and potentially Ishant Sharma dropping out because he wasn't fantastic at Headingley. But I've seen a lot of people talking about Rahani's place, Anand, at number 5. He's not been in sparkling form. He's got a few runs here and there. He's looked quite nice when he's been in. I can't see them dropping the vice captain.
I don't see Rahane dropped for this test just yet. I think he'll get, one more, possibly even 2 more tests. Rahane has done very well in England. So sure, this series he hasn't set England on fire just yet, but Rahane does have the ability and the technique to play in these seaming conditions. Now, certainly it comes down to, I think they need to perform, right? So I think Pujara had a decent inning out there. It really depends on when these batsmen come in. So there are a lot of variables in play here, but I think Rahane is going to get 1 more test. The biggest variable, though, I think in team selection might be, is Ravindra Jadeja fit? So he's been taken to the hospital. I wonder what happens if he's not fit, because Kohli has a couple of choices, right? He can go with the 5-bowler theory, which he has been doing so far, and have 4 pacers and Ashwin, or does he go with 6 batsmen, 4 bowlers? And with Ashwin being a spin bowler who's, Ashwin, when you compare Jadeja and Ashwin, Jadeja is a very good spin bowler, but Ashwin has more. He's able to provide more. He's got more dip. He's got some variations in there. So is that opportunity to, get an extra batsman in? And I think that's really going to depend on what Kohli and Shastri think. I suspect Kohli has always mentioned he likes 5 bowlers. I think they're still going to go in with 5 bowlers.
Okay. So on that basis, that doesn't... Naman, where do you stand on Rahane? Ajinkya Rahane. I mean, I think he's a terrific player. He hasn't necessarily shown his best in this series just yet, but I've seen a few people on Twitter telling me today that Vihari should come in for him. I mean, Vihari hasn't played since they started this series, has he? He hasn't had any cricket at all apart from in the net. So, I mean, that's one of the problems with this series, isn't it? There's nobody getting loads of cricket in behind the scenes that's saying, pick me, because I've just scored 200 last week. There's nobody doing that now.
So, not to be so much harsh on Rahane, but I feel that he and Pujara are only playing one format, and it's been huge journey right now for them. And also taking COVID scenarios, they are playing since Australia season. So it's like too many tests India have already played. So I guess one of Pujara or Rahane maybe need to take rest. It's not about dropping them, but COVID has also given this cushion of taking huge squad along with you. So we have so many players to choose from. So I just suggest not about dropping Rahane, but since this oval is one of the flattest wicket, I still remember that Pant last time in 2008 had scored a ton. And also, this is the only ground where Butler has so much success. Last time he had scored 90s and 80s on this ground itself. And batsmen fancy this kind of wicket. So I just feel that somewhere down the earth, this is the perfect wicket where they would like to introduce Surya Kumar Yadav. I feel that he could be introduced in this match in place of Rahane. And as Anand mentioned, that if Jadeja is injured, we do have like for like replacement in the name of Akshar Patel if it comes to bowling, and I'm sure that India is going to go with two spinners on this wicket because in second innings, likes of Moeen Ali, Keshav Maharaj, and Nathan Lyon has succeeded on this ground. So for sure, two spinners are playing. Maybe they could replace Siraj with Shardul as well. But Shami and Bumrah are surely playing next match. But overall, I feel Ashwin is the one, but I would fancy playing Sky in this match for sure.
Oh, I love you, Naman. I love Sky. I want if you're going to drop Rahane for anybody, bring Surya Kumar Yadav in. He's a terrific player. I'm not sure about his first class record though, Naman. Has he played much first class cricket? I mean, I only know him from the IPL. That's only where I've seen him play. Is he Anand Naman? Has he got extraordinary figures behind him to come in Red Bull?
He used to play, but since Ranji season has not happened since last 2 years, and this year also it's not happening. They are planning next year, so not too much of red ball cricket. But the kind of form he is in, he could become an X factor. And if he and Pant gets going on the such kind of wicket, it's going to be a pure entertainment. So somewhere, he is part of the squad now. He has been successful in ODIs as well as T20s. So why not give him an opportunity in red ball cricket as well? Who knows? Right now he is on Sky, so maybe he could provide what India needs right now. Because this Test match, I feel that is very important. Because the one who will win this match will be on like cloud nine. Because at least they are not losing this series. They will be 2-1 ahead and with only one Test match left. So I just want India to come up with their best lineup.
Well, just to remind you, Naman, that could have been India at Headingley, couldn't it? If they won that Test match and not been bowled out for 78 in the first innings. The Rito, just a little bit of a dig there. Rito, looking at the Indian side, obviously you're an English badger, but you're over there in India. You've got more than a passing interest in this Indian side. How do you see it? What would you do to this 11?
Well, I think Rahane doesn't get dropped on this side because only two test matches ago he played an innings which probably won India that game. Without Rahane, 61, India were gone in that test match. Within a day before the game would have been over. So Rahane should play, and even if you remember the World Test Championship final, it was Rahane who played uh, gritty 40 in the first innings when batsmen were getting out all around him. So Kohli needs his vice captain, and I think Rahane should get at least two more test matches.
It's funny, isn't it, Rito? You get a 60, and although it looks good at the time, and everybody in that session, everybody's saying what an important knock this is. 2 weeks later, everybody's forgotten a 60, haven't they? You need to register three figures these days for people to remember it, don't you? But a 61 can be just as important on one pitch as a 150 on another.
Yeah, absolutely. That 61 probably can win India the series in England now. And Rahane, yes, I do believe the gap between him playing meaningful innings is ever increasing. He needs to address that. But I don't think in the middle of an important series against England, India will, Virat Kohli and Ravi Shastri will drop their vice captain, and that will send all wrong messages to the team.
My team then I put on Twitter earlier for India Anand was Rahul Sharma, no surprises, Pujara, Kohli, Rahane. Then I'd moved Jadeja and Pant around so that Jadeja was batting at 6 and Pant at 7. Ashwin coming in at number 8, and then Shami, Bumrah and Siraj to follow in that 11. Obviously, you've kind of come up with your different permutations of that. My England team was Burns, Hamid, Malan, Root. So no change to the top 4. Dan Lawrence coming in at number 5. Johnny Bairstow taking the gloves at 6. Moeen Ali, Chris Wokes, Ollie Robinson, Mark Wood and Jimmy Anderson. Quite a few responses to that. People saying, what's Craig Overton done wrong? in his time in the England team in the Test match. Nothing, but I just think Mark Wood's ahead of him. Craig Evanson's had one Test match. Mark Wood was ahead of him prior to that Test match. So why is he not ahead of him now? Just because he's been injured for 1 week. I mean, do you see that, Rito? What would be your bowling attack for the Oval for England? Would you have Mark Wood coming straight back into the team?
James, can I quickly touch upon that Ravi Ashwin thing?
Yeah, we're going back 10 minutes, but yeah.
Yeah, actually, Mike Atherton asked Virat Kohli that question whether he will go with 3+2 or 4+1. That's 4 seamers and 1 spinner. And Virat Kohli said that in England we will always prefer 4+1 because if we lose the toss and have a bowl first, then all of the bowlers are in the game. But with 3+2, it's not possible. So until and unless Ravindra Jadeja is ruled out of the 4th game, I don't see Ravi Ashwin coming into this team. And coming back to Mark Wood.
Yeah, well, no, you brought that up now, so we'll park Mark Wood for a second. Anand, how can you have? I think he's ranked 2nd best bowler in the world at the minute. He's certainly the best spinner in the world at the moment. How on earth can India afford not to play R. Ashwin?
I think part of that is because of the brilliance of Ravi Jadeja. What Jadeja provides is he provides quite a few overs that he's going to keep the batsman quiet. Jadeja, if the pitch starts spinning a little, Jadeja is a very good spin bowler. The batting is certainly a bonus, and then the fielding is a bonus. So Jadeja, in the words of our old selector, M.K. Prasad, is a 3D player. I think where Ashwin is struggling right now is, Ashwin, if you look back at his career, when he
You'd
first
be
started
concerned
out,
if he was 2D, wouldn't you? If you
we were very concerning.
Most human beings are 3D, aren't they?
Very concerning if it was 2D. But I think the issue is that Ravi Ashwin's batting has sort of tailed off. And with the tail that we have, you were joking about it. We got 4 number 11s, right? I think that's where Ravi Ashwin is now.
12s are 13s, Anand. They're not even 11s, are they?
Hey, I mean, did you see the second test? Did you see Shami elevate himself from number 12 to number 11? Come on.
He was like Sobers. I know.
He is. If there's a number 11, and he's the batting version of Gary Sobers, at number 11. Clearly, it's absolutely there. But I think what's happened is with
the only difference between Shami and Sobers is that Shami can't bowl spin.
That's it. He's got everything else. He even has, if you look at his personality, from what I hear, he seems to be similar to Sobers. He's always smiling around and stuff like that. So I don't know. But, how much can you depend on Shami, Bumrah? How much can you depend on Nishant? We have clearly seen that. And that's where I think the discussion comes down is Ashwin's batting right now is not good enough. Now, that in all reality should not have any effect. But I think where Ashwin is competing, he's not competing with Jadeja. I think Ashwin is competing with that 4th seamer. Who is that seamer?
It's only a matter of Test matches ago, going back to when England were in India, that Ashwin was clobbering 100.
Yeah, I think what has happened with Ashwin is Ashwin's a tinkerer. And you've seen that with his bowling. Ashwin likes to come out with different variations, and he's done the same thing with batting. Did you see his tweet? He was trying to bat left-handed the other day. Ashwin likes to play around. And if you look at his technique from when he first started playing Test matches, he was scoring Test hundreds. He's got, I think, 3 or 4 Test hundreds, I think. Ashwin has changed his technique. He has tweaked his technique to the point where now it's different. So I thought in the Australian tour he was coming back, and I really think they need to get Ashwin back in now again, because he does provide that point of difference. And between Shardul and Ashwin, if there was a straight up competition in there, to me Ashwin always wins that. So to me, Ashwin should always be in the squad. I think it's just looking at the permutations, combinations, and figuring out what do we do with that long tail.
Now, man, and sort of same question to you about world number 2 bowler in R. Ashwin. But if India don't win this series, or even draw it and go home disappointed, not picking Ashwin opens up Kohli and co to criticism, doesn't it? That they could do without, because that's going to be, if India lose the last 2 Test matches and they don't pick Ashwin, that's what's going to be thrown at them. Well, why didn't you pick the best spinner?
I don't think that at all, and I certainly agree with the Kohli and Shastri that Ashwin was not picked in first 3 Test matches, because if you'll overall see, there was hardly any help to the spinners, and I'm sure if Ashwin would have played any of those Test matches, and we would have come wicketless in any of the innings.
But we're talking about the next 2 though, Naman. aren't we?
Next two, as I mentioned, is surely going to play at least next matches for sure. Because it is in Headingley Oval, as spinners are always going to help get some assistance on the pitch, and it will be three fast bowlers plus two spinners. I am pretty much sure on that. And with Malan also coming in, and he is getting his touch, and he is looking in good form with Rory Burns as well. And there are four left-handers as right with Moeen and also Sam Curran right now. So for sure, Ashwin is going to come in the next match. I'm having no doubt, irrespective. And as you have correctly mentioned, that he just hit 100 when England had visited India in Chennai. So I am not doubting his batting skills at all, because that whatever they are contributing, the lower order is a plus. You just cannot blame them for batting, whether they are doing it or not. If your top six are failing, how can you expect them to always succeed and contribute to the team? Whatever they are giving is an advantage when it comes to batting, but it will be three fast bowlers plus two spinners for me.
Where were we, Rita, before you took us off on a tangent or back on Mark Wood? Mark Wood, continue.
Yeah, the problem with bringing Mark Wood back in, he doesn't have a great record in England. And the guy who replaced Mark Wood is Craig Overton. And he took 6 wickets, scored 32 of 42 balls when England were losing quick wickets and setting up that lead well beyond 350. So what do you do then to Mark Wood? Yes, overlays is the flattest pitch in England. It it's a place where you need a bowler with a point of difference. Now with going with Anderson, Robinson, Vokes, and Overton, you will have four very similar bowlers. So Mark Wood can be that difference, but I am a Joe Root and I don't know whether to take Mark Wood or Overton.
I mean, the thing with the Oval, it's the only ground in England I've never been to, actually, the Oval. But and the thing with the Oval, by all accounts, is that it's not quite the road, the flattest track in England that it used to be. It does offer a little bit to the bowlers these days. If you look at the county scores at the Oval, then it's not 600 plays 500 and things like that all the time. But I agree with you, Rita. I think if you look at the bowling attack, Mark Wood gives you something extra. And the one thing that the Oval might give you is a bit of bounce and a bit of pace. And Mark Wood's got that in abundance, hasn't he? If he can come in bowling at 93, 94 and getting bounce on hands, Indians batsmen aren't going to like that, are they?
Absolutely. Now, I think Indian batsmen handle high pace very well, but still, you want that point of difference. If you look at Anderson, you look at Robinson, you look at Vokes, they sort of bowl around the same pace. They're in the early 80s or whatnot, and they swing the ball, all three of them. You want somebody who's going to be slightly different. To me, Wood offers that point of difference. Even if he's bowling in, he's following that Australian template of bowling like 4 overs, high pace, take him off. So if Root can bowl him in short bursts, you have three other bowlers who are metronomes. These bowlers don't give that many runs away. So why not take Wood in? Overton to me is again a sort of similar bowler. Now I know Overton doesn't swing the ball as much, but he does seam it and he's tall. But you get that with Robinson. So uh, to me, Wood makes a lot of sense. Get him in. Plus, I also think with England, you guys are always thinking about the Ashes. You need Wood to get some bowling in, right? So Wood to me is going to be very key in Australia. Bowling 80 miles per hour, having four bowlers to do 80 miles per hour. I think England's done that plenty of times before. So I think Wood adds the point of difference to this test match. And also I think Wood adds the points of difference going forward as well. Whether it was Archer or Wood, it would be good to have somebody with that higher elevated pace.
How impressed have you been, Arnold, with Ollie Robinson?
Very impressed. This guy has come in. Usually you see debutants, they walk into a test match and then they take some time to get used to things, right? He's not played that many tests. He has been very metronomical almost. He's been swinging the ball out, swinging it in, seaming the ball as well. He's been very good. The only thing I know he's been people are talking him up as a savior in Australia and whatnot. And I think some folks have even compared him to Hazelwood. He might not have as much pace as Hazelwood does. But apart from that, this is a fine. Robinson has been really a point of difference, has bowled very well, has swung the ball. There were times when Anderson has sort of gone flat and Robinson's still keeping things tight. So I think, Robinson, very impressive start to his career and looks like a fine for England.
There's that start, isn't there? That we talked about it yesterday on the podcast about Anderson prolific in the first innings of Test matches, not quite so much so recently in the second innings of Test matches, and that's when Robinson's standing up, which is great for England. Somebody else starting to put their hand up with the ball. But how about you, Naman? Who's been the most impressive for you in terms of England's bowling attack?
Yes, and what impresses me of him is that he's a thinking bowler. It's not just that because ball is swinging and I have been given the new ball and yes, I have to just keep on bowling. He's a thinking bowler and he's studying the batsman quite nicely. And the uh, what plus point for him is that he also bowls he swings on both the ends. He is also setting up the batsman with too many in swingers or too many out swingers. If you will see, he was continuously bowling in swingers to Rahul. He has for sure identified something with Rahul with those in swingers, and it was all out swingers to Pujara and Rahane. So he's a thinking bowler and he's learning a lot from Anderson. He had mentioned in the presentation also. So for sure he's an asset for England for long term going into the Ashes series as well, and is nicely supported with the other bowlers as well. But if I would bring Wood into this lineup, it would be in place of Karan. I would still play Craig Overton. Robinson and Anderson, and bring in Wood or Sakib Mahmood for the next test match.
Yeah, Saki Mahmood was close to my team. Obviously, my team doesn't get to play because, strangely enough, England don't listen to me. But anyway, Rito, in terms of England's bowling attack, they've done really well, haven't they? Considering they're missing Broad, they're missing Archer, they're missing Stone. They've had Wokes out of the series so far. Ben Stokes is obviously sitting out because of his mental well-being. They have basically lost a frontline international bowling attack, but still taking Indian wickets, which is pretty decent, isn't it? As an effort.
Yeah, as an England supporter, I was always worried about post Anderson and Rod, although Anderson is still playing, but Rod is out with an injury. And the future looks bright for England. The new boys have come in and they have impressed me. And Ollie Robinson, I have really been impressed with his skill and his temperament as well. Oh, after that Twitter saga, he at one point he even thought he might not play for England again, but when he was selected again, he has come back into the team and he has just got back into the job.
And it's a little bit like the reverse of when India went to Australia most recently, isn't it? They they went down in the series, had a second or third team out, came back and won it. That's what England are doing to India in England, isn't it? They've gone down in the series, they've come back and now levelled it, and they've got a second string bowling attack. It's humiliating for India, isn't it?
There's still Anderson there. You can't call it a second string just yet. You have well, I think the jury's probably out whether he's the greatest English bowler, but if he's not, he's in the top two, I would think.
So that was a little bit like introducing a film and saying it's an absolute rubbish cast when Marlon Brando's the
Exactly.
headline, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. This guy's taken a wicket or two, right? So I think Anderson, certainly being there keeps everything. I think he sets the tone for England, and you've seen also, even when he's not bowling, he's not as effective. If the ball isn't swinging and whatnot, Anderson keeps the batsman quiet. That's one of the things that I think has changed in the last 5, 6, or almost 8, 9 years with Anderson is he now knows how to bowl even when nothing's going to happen. Because earlier he would swing the ball and then he would go for runs. Well, that's not the case anymore. But if you look at the rest of the attack, I think it really is sort of like the Indian attack in Australia. If you had just had Bumrah there or Ishan there playing all of these tests, it would be very similar. These guys have done a wonderful job. I think Robinson, Overton, really kudos to them. The one person who I think has sort of slipped a little is Sam Curran, and part of that might be is that for sure batters have figured him out, and Curran just needs to maybe get a little more pace or really go back to just swinging the ball because that's really his key. So, but the rest of the bowlers absolutely impressive in what they've done.
Let's round off for today. Then it's just a little one to fill in before we come back tomorrow and start to properly look ahead to the fourth Test match. In terms of how happy you are, obviously Rito England, Anand and Naman both India. How happy are you with where your team is situated as we stand? The kind of health check, 3 tests into this 5 Test match series, Naman. How pleased are you with where India are?
Yeah, I'm happy. Apart from the last performance in the first innings, overall India have given it back, and also in the first 2 tests as well, India has played nicely playing away from home and playing loads of test matches. It's just not you cannot expect 100% success every time. And I'm really happy with the way boys are going, especially the bowlers. Yes, the middle order is struggling, but it's hard to judge during this COVID time, staying in the bubble. And every time you ask them, these players, to go on and keep performing. But what I am a bit disappointed is like the rotation of players. Yes, I am not asking like expecting the players to get dropped, likes of Rahane, Pujara. But overall, if you'll see the success in Australia as well, you were getting the flavors in every match. In one match it was Sundar, in one match it was Shardul, in one match it was Siraj. When it was rotation of the players over here as well, because England are too good as a team to identify what this bowler has got to offer. So why not use the likes of Umesh Yadav or Shardul Thakur in every match just as an X factor or a different flavor to just give to the opposition so that there is something new to offer. I am not huge fan of the same 11 when you are playing away from home. So overall, I just want Kohli to rise up as a captain and also come up with a game plan against Root, because I was totally disappointed with how we tackled Joe Root, bowling Ishant and Jadeja for 12 straight overs after tea. I mean, like Joe Root, the kind of form he's in, it was just like a cakewalk. And also, as you might have seen, the amount of back foot shots which India is not at all playing. I saw Root, I saw Hamid also play. Like they are playing back foot shots and more runs towards point, which we are not at all seeing from Indians. And they are just bringing on their front foot ahead and it's just nicking. The pattern is same in all the test matches. So I want them to identify these small things. I'm not a great cricketer, or I feel that this is a small thing and it can be sorted out. That is why I'm a huge fan of Sky, because he can score in every part of the ground, more on the back foot, and also Shaw as well over there because he hardly moves his feet. So he could provide those kind of shots towards deep square leg, deep backward point and point. So these are the
I'm
kind
not, I'm
of
not,
issues.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Not moving your feet against the moving balls, the ideal platform, though, Naman. But I did see your tweet about Kohli and his dismissal, wasn't it, in the second innings? I think at Headingley, where he was basically propping forward, playing a ball outside the off stump. Whereas if you look at the likes of Joe Root, you look at the best of the English batsmen against the moving ball, they get very deep in the crease. They play it as late as possible. Yes, of course, there is that example of going a bit further down the pitch to stop the late swing at times, which is a different tactic. But I don't think going forward is necessary, and lunging at the ball like Kohli was doing is necessarily the right thing. I think that was a really good tweet, which is why I retweeted it and stuck it out there. Anand, what about you in terms of India at the moment? How happy are you? Is there anything making you really sad? I hope not.
So there's 2 points of references here. As a cricket fan, this is absolutely great because the series is
Oh,
poised at on a
yeah.
knife's edge, isn't it? It could go either way right now. And you look at two teams, both of
Well,
these
it's
teams,
impossible to predict it, isn't it?
it's so hard.
Anything, absolute anything could happen.
Absolutely. And you look at both of these teams, James, both of them battle back after some inexplicable collapses. Like so India went to Australia, got all out in 36, won the next test match. Uh, England has done that time and time again. You'll see they'll lose the first test match and they come back with a bang, right? So these two teams are teams that can battle back from adversity. I think momentum is a word that we really give a lot of stress to, but I don't know that is very applicable in today's test landscape because teams seem to be able to fight back. So India, when they went 36 all out, everybody said, okay, we're going to lose all of the tests. India's going to just go down. That didn't happen, right? So I think this series is really poised at a great place. I think one thing that where India is sort of lacking right now is a swing bowler. And right now we have two swing bowlers in the squad, because if you look at Shami and Bumrah, fantastic bowlers but primarily seamers. uh, Ishant can swing the ball. Ishant has, in the second test, as Naman has talked about, has looked a little off color, right? Ishant has not looked as good as he's been, but the man has been, if you look at the average and stuff like that, he matches up with James Anderson over the last 4 years, right? So he's been very good. Has he been off color right now? Yes, he has. So, I mean, if Ishant is not there, who's going to swing the ball? And I think that's where maybe you look at the Shardul, because Shardul can swing the ball. And the other person who swings the ball in the Indian landscape is Umesh Yadav. So maybe there are two options that they look at to say, okay, if we have a couple of seamers, do we bring in a swing bowler and take a look at Siraj and see whether Siraj to Siraj? Now, I love Siraj, but still, you got to figure that out. Uh, the thing that we are seeing right now is the Indian pace bowlers are not as good as bowling in English conditions as the Englishmen are, which makes a lot of sense. But if you look at the English pace bowling attack, apart from Overton, everybody swings the ball. So maybe that's where India is going to take a look at some of the tactics. I am not so much in favor of Sky coming in. Sky averages 44 in first class cricket.
Well, before you come back to that, we've got a couple of messages that have come in. Abai Raj says he agrees with Naman. That's never been said on this podcast before, Naman. So congratulations. He agrees with Naman. Ride on Sky's form and confidence. Get him in there whilst he's cock a hoop. But you don't agree with that, Alan?
Yeah, I'm on the other side with that. Not just yet. Sky certainly has got a lot of form. Sky can hit in unconventional places, as Naman is talking about. However, I still feel that if you're going with the next man up, the person in there is Vihari. Vihari has shown that he can play. Vihari should be the next man up.
Yeah.
Vihari can play the swinging ball. Vihari can play in the seaming ball. I would say Vihari comes in next, not Sky. Doesn't this is not really a knock on Sky. Sky is a great batsman, but I still would take Vihari over Sky just now. That doesn't mean that doesn't change as we go forward.
I was going to try. I think I'm going to choke to death on the live stream. Where am I going? Vasanth has said he thinks that Virat missed a trick of not playing Shardul and Ashwin at Headingley. Rita, do you think that's right?
Well, I'm not sure. Going back to the Ashwin thing, when he was going to bat first, then he must have really had two spinners in the attack. But Virat has other ideas, and he has over and over again said that he will stick to this 4+1 formula. And no one is, Virat is adamant, and no one is going to move Virat from that position, it seems.
Vasanth's also saying that he wants to have either Vihari or Mayank. Mayank would have started this test series if it hadn't been for that injury. KL's come in and done really well in his absence, and Mayank's basically been sitting on the sidelines ever since, hasn't he? And you wonder if Mayank might be the first point of call to come in and cover. Rita, moving on to you from an England perspective, how pleased are you with where England are? I mean, as Anand said, one of my biggest bugbears, I think, with England is that they follow an absolute. They play rubbish, and they get slated, and then in the next Test match, it's almost like they're sticking two fingers up at everybody, saying, "Look at how we can actually play. You're all wrong for criticising us because we're actually really good Test players." And then they don't follow that up the next time. The biggest test for England is coming off the back. It was an immaculate performance at Headingley. There was very little England did wrong in Leeds. Now, can they back that up at Lord's? That's the big question for me. Can they play that way? Sorry, at the Oval. Can they play that way again?
Yeah, the term that's often used with England is bounce back ability. This team has done that in the past a lot. And firstly, talking about the performance in the third test, it was a complete performance from England. They didn't drop any catches. All the bowlers contributed, and the openers, they put on 135. What more can you ask from as an England fan? So I am very, very happy as an England fan. But looking ahead to
I couldn't believe it, Rito. Sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't believe it, Rito. And I saw people, English fans on Twitter, saying they should have batted on longer. We should have got more than the 300 odd lead. And I was thinking, if you actually look at England playing Test cricket over the last 4 years, how can you be disappointed with a 350 lead or whatever it was? I mean, how many times have we been at? We're never happy as England fans, I don't think. Never happy.
Yeah, no, the more you get, you ask for more. That's the problem with England fans. Yeah, looking ahead to the fourth and fifth Test matches, England will need to maintain the standard or even get better because India will get better. Kohli has said he's hurting from that performance in Headingley and he wants his team to get better.
As Anand said there, I mean, India are just as capable of bouncing back after a bad performance as England are. So it was no surprise to me that England bounced back after the disappointments at Lord's. But beware the wounded Kohli kind of thing now, isn't it? Ahead of the Oval, Rita.
Yeah, but I would hope that at home England have got on one of those streaks where they were just good for the opposition and they win the series from here on. That's just what I hope as an England fan.
Let's go around the group then. One last question. We're one apiece after 3. We've got 2 more Test matches to play. What will the score be after 5 Test matches of this series? Naman, let's start with you. What's your prediction?
Yeah, I'll stick with what I had provided before the series started. It is 3-1 India.
Oh, so you're still in with a shout there, aren't you? Anna, what was your prediction right at the start?
So I always thought it would be 2-1 India, and part of that was because I thought a couple of test matches are going to be disrupted by rain. Well,
So are you changing your mind on that?
I think we still might be in with a shout with that. It really depends on how the weather is. I haven't checked how, is it going to rain or anything like that. But there we have had one test match disrupted by rain. Chances that we'll have one more certainly are possible. And I still think it's the series is on a knife edge, but I think India just ekes it out.
How about you, Rita? What was your prediction when we talked about it right at the start of the series?
No, I wasn't on that preview part, James, so I didn't have
what would it have been? You can make it up now. You can invent something that's very plausible.
Yeah, I'm wearing my England top, so 3-1, of course.
Do you still see that as being a real live possibility?
Yeah, looking ahead to the fourth test, it looks like Curran and Butler will miss out. Butler for other reasons than current perform. So Vokes and extra batter will get in, and that England team will get even better. Although it looks near impossible to get better from that performance in Headingley. So yeah, I think that England will win the next two test matches as well.
I think I went for an Indian series win on a few of the previews that I wrote. So we'll see how we go with that. I can't lose with that because if India win the series, then I'm happy that I've written pieces that prove that I am a genius. And if England win the series, then I can just tear those pieces up and say England won, hurrah! So that's all good for me. I mean, as you indicated there, Anand, it is just a terrific series of cricket. Ever since I was looking forward to England going to India because I thought that was going to be an absolute cracker. And because England won the first one, it actually turned out to be a really entertaining test series as well, despite the fact that India found it quite comfortable towards the end. And ever since that test series, I've been looking forward to India coming back to England because obviously the conditions level the playing field a little bit, don't they? And it's two very good teams going at each other. So really looking forward to the next two test matches. They come thick and fast, and we'll be with you every single day on the Cricket Badger podcast as we go through England against India. Amit, basically, one final point. We'll give Amit the last word. He says, this is a repeat of the 2014 series where we won in England, then lost everything after. So, yeah, well, there you go. That's a nice, cheery way for Amit to finish the podcast off from that point of view. Thank you very much to Anand, Naman and Rito. As always, I'll see you all again soon. Thanks, everybody, for watching too at Cricket_Badger on the Twitter feed, and join us every single day as we go live on these podcasts. You can also then listen to them later as the more traditional method. Just search for Cricket Badger podcast on Google and you'll find it. And you can listen to it as well if you fancy listening rather than watching, because some of the faces that we have on this podcast aren't the best to look at, are they? I'm talking about the one in the top left mainly. We will see you very, very soon indeed. See you tomorrow.